Do you ever feel like you're the only one who really cares about your business? Do you hear yourself say things like, I'm waiting for someone to actually think, but they just keep managing the status quo? Or I've got team members who push back and question everything, or they just don't do what I ask them to do. Or I'm constantly chasing people for updates or redoing work that wasn't done properly in the first place. And some days it just feels like I'm managing adults who still need hand-holding. If any of this sounds familiar, this episode is for you. And if you're just starting out hiring a team, this is going to help you avoid some of the speed bumps as you grow your team. Because your team is there to free you up, not create more work and stress. So here we go. Hey there, I'm Susie Daphnis. I'm your host and the CEO at Her Business, and today we are tackling a huge topic. If you're like many of the small business owners that I speak with, you are constantly chasing people for updates, or you're having to redo work that wasn't done properly in the first place, and some days it can feel like your team is actually creating more work and more stress rather than freeing you up. Now, here's the thing, these are not problems with your people. More often than not, they're not. It is actually leadership problems. Because when we step fully into our role as leaders, not just as business owners or task managers or delegators, everything starts to shift. And in this episode, we're going to unpack what leadership can really look like and how you can start leading in a way that feels clear, confident, and completely aligned with who you are. And we're going to talk about what real leadership looks like inside a small business. How to lead your team with clarity and intention, how to step away from being the doer of all things to directing the business, and how your leadership can be the key to a stronger team, to better results, and to more ease in your day-to-day. And that's my goal for you, is to have more ease in your day-to-day. Who doesn't want that? Now, this topic is so big that we will actually be splitting it into two parts. So this is part 1, and part 2 will be released next week. And what I'm about to say is relevant for both episodes. And that is the definition that I want us to keep in mind when we are talking about leadership. Now, there's the literal definition of leadership, which is about moving a group of people forward. But there's also a more personal meaning. It's what comes up for you when you picture yourself as a leader. Is it confidence, or is it fear, uncertainty, doubt? The good news is that personal meaning, those feelings and associations, they are not fixed, they can change. And they do change depending on your experiences, your mindset, and how you choose to see yourself. So if right now the word leader kind of doesn't fit you well, doesn't feel really comfortable, it doesn't have to stay that way. You can rewrite that definition. You can start to see yourself as a leader in your own way. And when you do that, everything begins to shift. So when I first started growing a team, I did not like managing people. I didn't want to manage people. I wanted to do my own work. I wanted people to leave me alone. I would get bothered when people asked me too many questions or when mistakes were made. And some days I thought, oh gosh, this is just all too hard. Maybe I shouldn't have a team. And of course, I had to have a team if I was going to grow. But it's something that I hear women say just this morning. One of my members said, I just keep seeing the trouble other people have with their teams, and I think it's just simpler to not have a team. But here's the problem. If you want to grow your business, it's going to take more than you to do it, beyond a certain point. Now, you could be a high-paid consultant and have a bookkeeper or, maybe a virtual assistant. But if you want to grow a business that allows you to take time off, that doesn't depend on you doing all the things and generating all the monies, then you're going to need a team. And so today's a little bit about how to grant yourself the permission to lead in your fullness, to guide your life, your team, your business in the direction that you want it to go. And as I see it, there are 3 core parts of leadership in relation to business. There's the leadership of other people, of your team, and that is how can you grow and keep and inspire a team of employees or contractors around you. It's your ability to lead other people to achieve your business goals. The second core part of leadership is leadership within your industry. This is about your visibility and your authority and how you show up as a leader to your ideal clients within your industry. And finally, there is leadership of self. And arguably, this is the most difficult of the three to get right, but in my opinion, it is the most important. So in part one, which is this episode, we're going to dive into the internal sides of leadership, if you like, based on my definitions. So we're going to be talking about leadership of a team, whether that's a team of 1 or a team of 100. And then in part 2, which will be released a week from now, we're going to talk about external leadership, like how to show up as a leader in your industry. And the leadership of self, well, that's going to come up through both episodes because, as you can guess, it's tied to each one in more ways than we might initially realise. Now, once you've listened to both of these episodes, you will essentially have had a master course on the type of leadership that really changes businesses. And I encourage you to listen in and think about how you can apply this work to your role as a leader. All right. So what does it mean to be not just the boss, but a leader of people, a leader of a team? This is about taking full ownership and responsibility for the direction and the outcomes of your business. And it does mean stepping out of the day-to-day tasks to take a higher level view. I said earlier, I would be bothered by people asking me questions, people knocking at my door. But you know what? As the leader, it is our role to set that higher level view, to set the vision, to define the strategy, to create a culture that reflects your values and your vision. And as a leader, you're not just doing the work. You're guiding the work. And if you have a team, whether that's, multiple full-time employees or simply contractors who work with you a few hours a week or a month, leadership requires you to have clarity, to set clear expectations, have clear communication, and create a supportive environment that empowers others to thrive. Now that extends, as I said, to employees, to contractors, but it also is suppliers, which are slightly different to contractors. So you might have someone who contracts to you as a marketer, but you also want to lead your suppliers, have them be really clear about your intentions, what you're looking for in that relationship. But we're going to focus pretty much on team here today. It does require you to move from being the doer to being the director and stepping into the CEO role and helping others step up too. But here's the thing, that change, it's not an easy one to make. Now, I remember the early days of my business, my very first business, which was an events company. My partner PJ and I, we were wearing all the hats, and I mean all of them. I was answering every email, picking up the phones, writing newsletters, running events, doing the marketing, you name it. I was deeply in the business, but I wasn't leading anything. It wasn't until I truly embraced the CEO role that everything started to shift. And I remember one particular moment, I was working late again, doing something that really wasn't the best use of my time, exhausted and overwhelmed by the number of things on my plate. And then it hit me, if I want to grow, I can't keep doing it like this. I need to let go. And that's when I started building a team. And it was slow at first. We'd pay friends' teenagers to come over and stuff envelopes for our direct mail campaigns, and we would pay them with pizzas and a movie. I'd hire a friend for a day a week, and I would do what we could afford. But letting that control go, even though it was very minimal at first, it was hard for me. Letting go of control when you're used to doing it all yourself can be a real challenge, but letting go, getting uncomfortable in order to get comfortable later really pays off. And growing a team, in my instance, was not all about fun days and table tennis games over pizza lunches. It was hard. It was hiring and managing people with a lot more experience than me, people much older than me. I was just 27 when I started my first business. And that brought up all sorts of self-doubt. And there was the huge burden that I felt as that business grew, that I had to make enough money every month to pay these people month after month because they were relying on me so they could pay their rent, so they could pay their mortgages, so they could pay for their kids' tuition. And, like a lot of us, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was so green. I'd never managed a team inside of another business in a job, so this was a first for me. And they were not fun days. I was not enjoying being a leader, not at all. I just wanted to do my work and be left alone most of the time. And things have changed a lot. After a number of years of really working on myself and my leadership and understanding the things I'm sharing with you, things finally started to click. I stopped being resentful that I was paying salaries for nothing. I'm doing air quotes here as I talk to you. Or that, more air quotes, nobody cared. Or feeling like the team was an inconvenience when they asked a whole lot of questions. Gosh, I don't love thinking about those days. There was so much for me to learn about leadership and communication and running a team and planning and holding a vision and stepping into that CEO role rather than acting like a self-employed person. I had to think like a business owner. And I'm so blessed to be surrounded by a team and to have been surrounded by a team for many decades now that is executing. They're thinking, they're contributing, they're helping me expand the vision, they're helping me support you. That evolution to being a leader from being a doer, that changed everything. And so let's talk about some of the skills and tools that you'll need in order to become that type of leader. Now, true leadership of a team, it goes beyond writing a role description, hiring someone, and then delegating. Quite often, that looks like abdication, is how I see it in small businesses. And it's definitely not about abdication. That's a mistake I see women make. Here's what it looks like in practice. Leadership starts with clarity. It is your job to clearly articulate where the business is going, what success looks like, how each team member contributes to that bigger picture. And it's about making sure that everyone is rowing in the same direction and that they know that their work matters. And that means stepping into a new way of thinking, not as someone who is self-employed, but as a business owner. And I've said this twice now, and I want to explain what I mean. In his book, Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki, my dear friend and mentor, talks about these two different types of people, the self-employed person and the business owner. And here's what he says about being self-employed. He said, this person owns a job. They work for themselves and often believe that no one can do the job as well as they can. Their income, and this is the clue, is directly tied to their personal effort and time. If they don't work, they don't earn. So examples of self-employed people are consultants, solo practitioners, freelancers. A business owner is kind of a different breed. So a business owner owns a system. They hire people to run it. By owns a system means they have a methodology. They hire people to run that business. Their business can operate and generate income without their constant involvement in all tasks. So their focus is on building teams and systems that can scale and function independently. So this isn't just franchise owners, because I'm using the word system. It is entrepreneurs who have staff and procedures and systems and planning and team that is trained so that they can do their roles independently. Now, that doesn't mean that as leaders we don't step in and set the direction. We absolutely do. But in short, self-employed people work in their business. Business owners work on their business. Or they don't work at all in some cases if they're super lucky once it's running smoothly. Or you work in your business a little bit, but you also do a lot of work on the business. And a business owner articulates where the business is going, what success looks like, how each team member contributes. Now, at her business, one of the ways that we get the team on board with what is coming up is that we have quarterly strategy meetings. We have annual planning meetings. We have weekly meetings. That might sound like a lot of meetings, but they're all very strategically placed and outlined. Now, leading your team means creating an environment where people feel trusted and empowered to take initiative. And the more communication that you can have around that, I think the better. So it's more than just assigning tasks. It's about handing over some outcomes, letting your team own the how something gets done, allowing them to initiate. And you can initiate the how and guide it through clear training and processes. So I'm not saying just leave people to their own devices. I haven't seen that work. But set the structure, create the framework, create the environment, and coach people to lead in their own roles. And this can take time and effort. And one of the big mistakes I see leaders make is they don't have a really robust onboarding system for their new hires. And they think, well, how long should I onboard them for? What happens after the first month? Managing a team, leading a team is an ongoing focus on what do they need to know next. It takes continuing to coach and course correct and empower and give feedback. And great leaders invest in their people. Now, as small business owners, the way we invest in our people might be different to a big corporation. It can mean offering some sort of professional development or ensuring that they're developing their skills along the way. My goal is always for people to leave more skilled, more able when they leave my business than when they started. So there's always opportunities to learn to do something differently or learn a new piece of software or execute on a different sort of project they have before. But also regularly checking in. How can I support you to get your job done? Are you waiting on anyone? Is someone else being a bottleneck? Do you have any lack of clarity about what's expected? And it means giving valuable feedback. It also means celebrating wins, but also lovingly challenging people to step up when needed and having those tough conversations. And strong leadership includes setting up communication rhythms like the ones I just mentioned, whether it's team meetings or one-on-one meetings or project updates, where expectations are clear and everybody's heard. And not just now and then, but regularly. Especially if you have a dispersed team, like a virtual team, people need to see your face regularly and hear your voice and hear your intention and hear your vision when things are good and when they're not good, because your team watches how you handle stress, how you make decisions, how you treat people. So when you lead yourself well by managing your time, setting boundaries, being clear, speaking respectfully, your team will mirror that. You set the whole culture with your tone. And that piece is so important. It actually builds a team, because you can't claim a group of people as a team if they click in, do their tasks, get a paycheck, clock out. That's not a team. A team is formed when those different people with different strengths and talents and backgrounds come together with the same goal, and they use their bits of expertise in unison. When you have team members brainstorming and tackling problems together without your input all over everything, that's a team. It means when you step away for a week, things don't grind to a halt. It means that your team can keep things moving forward even when you're not there to watch over them. It means that you don't come back to a week's worth of wheel spinning and half-finished work because you've taken a holiday. It means that your absence doesn't turn into an unofficial holiday for your team. When no one uses your time away as an excuse to take their foot off the pedal. A friend told me the other day that they were doing a stock take in their business, an end of financial year stock take, and her husband, who's a partner in the business, asked a team member to do something differently in the way that she was taking stock. And he was met with, why don't you just do it yourself? I don't know how that went down, but I have never, in over 30 years of being in business, had a team member respond to me like that. If your team members are not allies, then I encourage you to take a look at that. Because a team that you're not gelling with at some level, you don't have to be besties, but a team that doesn't respect you and your leadership is not a recipe for you to get the leverage that you need. And I've heard horror stories that are the result of unclear agreements, unclear expectations, or roles and responsibilities and systems that just don't add up. So the effectiveness is shaped by how you show up, how you communicate, the standards you hold, the example you set. And if this sounds like a bit of work, it is. And as I said, it was not my favourite work. It's become my favourite work because this is where we get leverage. This is where things really start to come together. And I wish I'd known this earlier. Another thing I wish I'd known earlier is you don't have to have all the answers in order to lead. It doesn't mean being the smartest person in the room and having the solution and the answer for everything. Being ultra capable, solving everything myself, that wasn't it. If that was true, why would I even need a team? Real leadership is about creating the space for others to bring their best thinking too. It's less about control, it's more about trust and collaboration. Even if it feels slow at first. I know it can be hard. It's like pulling teeth to get people to contribute until they feel heard, until they feel more comfortable, until they get a clear picture of, what your expectations are, what you are trying to achieve. Try this. And it's about letting go of being perfect and having them have the perfect answers. There are two important roles that we have as leaders: managing and leading, and they're both essential, but they are definitely not the same. Managing is about maintaining, keeping the day-to-day running smoothly. It's task-focused. You're overseeing projects, you're assigning work, you're checking deadlines, you're making sure things get done. That's a valuable role, and probably one that you're doing yourself if you have a small business. Leading, on the other hand, is about how do we move this business forward? It's people-focused. It's vision-driven. You're inspiring, you're guiding, and you're setting the direction. And sometimes you have to flip-flop between these two roles, but know which one you're in. Because leaders empower, they coach, they create clarity, and then they trust their team to execute. And as I said, you may play both roles. If you're on a small business and you don't have a second in charge who can do the managing, that's normal. Just be sure to allow yourself the time and space to do both. Manage, yes. In fact, managing can be easier than leading. So don't forget to actually lead, to do that leader's work. It comes down to those foundational elements that I mentioned earlier. And your team, they want to take pride in their work. They want to know that they're making a difference. They want to be recognised. They want to be challenged to grow. They want clarity. Internally at Her Business, we hold daily huddles to clarify tasks, just 15-minute meetings for whoever's working on that day to catch up on, is anyone waiting on anybody? What are you working on today? What got checked off yesterday? Etc. So we do that on a daily basis. So whoever's in that day will participate. Then once a week, we have our team meeting and we look at our stats for that week. We get updated on projects that are coming up in the next week and the next month. And then we have our more strategic quarterly meetings where we go deeper into, hey, what does the next quarter look like? Now, this takes effort for me to be prepared for that. It means we need to have our plans done well in advance. We're not shooting from the hip. We're doing this one week and then the next week we're doing something different. And so this is what leadership is about. This is part of self-leadership. This is how you become the leader that you and your team need. And it might be a little work to get this started, to be planning ahead, to be projecting forward. But once you get into this cadence, you're always that little bit further ahead. You can see further because you're the visionary, you're the owner, and then you're bringing people up to speed. But you want to keep communicating, even if it's imperfect. Now, a couple of the ways that your team can take ownership of the work and you can acknowledge their contributions is to have ways to celebrate wins, whether that's small or large. So it could be a shout out in your Slack channel or whatever you use to communicate with your team. It could be an acknowledgement in front of other team members. It could be a private note. But that recognition really fuels people. So inside of our weekly meetings, again, this is a part of leadership. This is why I'm telling you this. One of the things that we do is we have a minute to acknowledge ourselves for something that's happened in the last week, or to acknowledge someone else on the team for something that's happened in the last week. And this is a great way to have people acknowledge each other. It's also a great way for us to give ourselves a pat on the back. Now, we use Slack. It's one of the communication channels we use. And when a task is, mentioned or something is done, someone does something, you can add an emoji. And so recently, some of us started using the little medal emoji. Like someone completed a project early and so they got someone gave them a medal. And the funniest thing happened. People started to say, hey, I noticed so-and-so got a medal for doing that. I want to let you know that this is what I did. Do I get a medal? And then we would joke about the weekly medal tally and who had the most gold medals and who had more silver medals or who didn't get any medals that week. And of course, we're joking and laughing, but it's little things that can just lift the mood and have people feel acknowledged. So that was just a bit of fun and it's great. I'm going to set up a medal tally because I like a little bit of competition and they do too. But it's really all just for fun and just to acknowledge each other. The other thing I love to do is to share client wins with the team so that they can see the true impact that they're making. So often we're cogs in a wheel. Some of your team might be packing orders. They're working in a warehouse or they're creating products or they're, doing your CRM or they're offsite. They never really get to hear the client wins. Share your wins, whether it's screenshotting something in a Facebook group or sharing something that came to customer service or quoting someone that you were on the phone with or someone that bought your product and loved it, or the number of 5-star reviews you have. You want to share that with people at all levels of the team, not just, your second in charge, or if you have a big team, not just your management team. Everybody, the person at the entry-level job should be celebrating alongside you. Now, retention is obviously a strong signal that you're leading your team in the right direction, that you're encouraging and supporting them in the ways that they need. And this all starts with you. So if you have a revolving door of team, which I did for many years in the early years of my business, get this, it's not them. It's you. It's us. I know that sounds rough, but can it really always be them? Something is amiss. It's either in the hiring or the role description or the onboarding or the management. Something needs attention. So before you abandon being a leader, before you abandon having a team, my recommendation is that you really get on board with leadership. And as I said, I see women say, I don't want a team anymore. It's too much trouble. That's fine if you want to stay self-employed and not grow your business beyond you. But be clear. You can't do both. You can't say, I want, a 7-figure business. I want to be leveraged. I want to be able to go for extended periods of time and have the business run without me. You're going to need some people to do some things. Now, I want to say a few things about self-leadership, because if you don't have that core piece, leading your team and leading your business can become far more difficult. So what do I mean by self-leadership? Oh, this is one of my favorite topics. This is making the space for the inner work. So not just your to-do lists and your external tasks. It's about making sure that things just don't look good on the outside, but that you're connected and aligned with what you truly want. So how you lead yourself through fear or fatigue or burnout or uncertainty is how you're going to show up for your team and your clients and your audience. And I like being transparent with my team, but I also know that I need to get my stuff handled separately so that I can show up as the best leader as possible for them. Not sugarcoating things, but just being real. And self-leadership is the most important, most challenging part of my journey. It has been. And there have been times where I've doubted myself or let fear or comparison creep in. But I would never start a business again without a team. Like, being a leader is where I like to play. I've learned that how I speak to myself, how I manage my energy, how I care for my mindset, it all impacts how I lead other people. And we've had years where we've missed big targets, where launches didn't land. Now, the old me would have spiraled, and for sure, I still have those moments when things don't go right. But because I've done and I continue to do the work on self-leadership, I can pause, I can regroup, I can lead from clarity, I can pivot, I can change, not from fear, but from a place of being really aligned. And so self-leadership is a daily practice. It's choosing to show up with intention. It's staying connected to your bigger why. And sometimes it looks like setting boundaries to protect your energy. Sometimes it's being honest with yourself about what's really working and what's really not working. And it's regulating your emotions so that you're leading from a place of power, not from stress or scarcity. Holding yourself accountable or ensuring you have others around you who care enough about you to help you stay accountable is so important, because when the motivation fades, when things get tough, how do we stay on track? And celebrating your wins and having someone there to celebrate with. That's exactly why we exist as an organisation, Her Business, because a lot of small business owners, there isn't anyone there to share the downtimes with. There isn't anyone there to share the wins with. And so self-leadership is leading from the inside out. If I'm not managing my mindset and my emotional state, I can't expect to lead a team well, to serve a community, to grow a business in a sustainable way. And this self-leadership happens in the quiet, daily choices. Choosing rest over burnout. Choosing to stop doing something that's not working. Looking at progress over doing everything perfectly. Looking at, how can I be courageous today, over hiding. That's where the strength to lead others is built. And self-leadership creates a ripple effect across every part of your life. When you're grounded and you're intentional, your decisions become clearer. You stop reacting from fear or urgency. You protect your time and energy. You build a business that reflects your values, not just what's expected. You show up with more presence. You set boundaries. You communicate with confidence. And you stop over-delivering out of insecurity or a need to prove yourself. You stop looking outside of you for validation or permission. You speak more honestly. You stop people-pleasing. It's a lot, right? And most importantly, you start feeling at home in yourself. And you stop swinging between being burnt out and feeling guilty. And you hold the space for you, for your own growth. And you treat yourself like someone worth leading, with patience, with grace and belief, the exact way we want to lead other people, we want to lead ourselves. Because without self-leadership, everything else gets wobbly. And you can't outsource this. You can't delegate it. You can't write a role description for it. You can't strategize your way around it. It's the foundation of your business, of your voice, of your relationships, of your well-being. So maybe you're listening to this and you don't feel ready to step into the role of a leader of a team. Maybe you haven't seen anyone else like you doing it, or you've been so busy supporting everyone else. I want you to know that leadership isn't something you earn by ticking off more achievements. It's something to claim, just like I ask our members to claim the CEO role, even if they're a one-person organisation. This is you deciding that your voice, your vision, your values, your goals, they matter. And we don't need to wait to be chosen. We get to choose ourselves. So if you've been playing in the background or keeping yourself small so others don't feel like you're outshining them, your light, your stepping into leadership is going to allow others to do the same. It'll allow your team to find their own voice. It'll allow others to find their own voice. And we'll talk more about this when we talk about leadership in your industry in the next episode. So let's come back to the definitions we talked about at the beginning of the episode. There's the literal definition of leadership, moving a group of people forward. And then there's the other meaning. It's what comes up when you picture yourself as a leader. That's the picture I want you to get really familiar with and see, is there some tweaking that needs to be done there? Because this can be changed. So if right now the word leader feels uncomfortable or out of reach, hopefully after today's episode, you're a little clearer on it. It doesn't have to stay that way. You can rewrite the definition. You can start seeing yourself as a leader in your own way. You can develop the skills that you need in order to lead, the structures, the frameworks, the environment. And when you do that, everything begins to shift. Because the more you step into leadership of your team, of your business, and most importantly of yourself, the more confident, the more capable, the more connected you're going to feel. And that's when you really start to lead with purpose. And perhaps you're at a stage where you might need to clarify what you need to do next. How do I live my life or my team? How do I create a business that I actually love again, Susie? That's what we're doing inside of the Business Trailblazers Experience in October. It's a small group program with a maximum of 10 women who are at that point. And I'm having one-on-one conversations with a few women who are at this exact crossroad. Women who are ready to reset for something bold, for something spacious, for something deeply nourishing, because they've been burnt out. Like they're leading a team, they're burnt out, they don't want to do it anymore. Someone said to me the other day, I find myself under my desk crying. I'm just exhausted and I don't want to keep doing this. But I also just can't give up all these years of work that I've done. Excuse me. There's a team of people relying on me. These conversations, these one-on-one conversations, may lead you to join me in Greece later this year for a special experience. So if any of this resonates with you, I want you to head over to herbusinesstrailblazers.com for more details and to book a time to chat with me. Now, next week, we're going to be continuing this conversation about leadership, but we're going to shift the focus outwards. Today was about the internal side of leadership, leading yourself, leading your team. But in the next episode, we're going to look at how to show up and lead in your industry. How do you get seen as the go-to expert? How do you show up externally with clarity and confidence and purpose, even if you're an introvert? How do you feel pride when you talk about your business and have others listening, leaning in? We're going to dive into all of that, so be sure to join me for that episode. And if you love these kinds of conversations and you wish you had a community of women that you could have these conversations with, then join us inside the Her Business Network if you're not part of our community already. This is a space filled of women, who are growing values-driven businesses. They're committed to their development. They're having bigger conversations. You don't have to do business alone. You don't have to lead alone. So come join us. Over on our website at herbusiness.com/315, which is the number of this episode, herbusiness.com/315, we're going to put anything that I've referenced here today, including how you can learn more about the Her Business Network, how you can join me at Trailblazers, and anything else that was mentioned. So what I want to do is give a quick shout out to actually a guy, Sean. Hello, Sean, who listens to the show, which I love. We have an app that gathers our reviews from all parts of the world. And Sean said this. He was listening to episode 294, which is a few episodes ago now, and it was called Benefits of a Focused Product Range, Why More Products Could Mean More Problems. And he said this episode reinforced how business success isn't just about great products, but about being seen. Simplifying, staying consistent, and optimizing what already works was a great reminder that small strategic actions create meaningful results. A must listen for any entrepreneur looking to market smarter without adding extra complexity. But in that episode is about you don't need more products and services. That may not be it. You might need more focus. So I'll put a link to that episode inside of our show notes, which once again you will find at herbusiness.com/315. And thank you, Sean. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to join me for the next one, which is part 2. But also, do me a favor and leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. It helps us reach more women in business. Or you can direct message me at Instagram. And so on Instagram, our account is at Her Business. Be sure to follow us if you don't already. And you can direct message me there if you want to comment on today's episode, or if you have any questions at all or anything you'd like to hear in future episodes. And wherever you are listening, if you haven't already hit follow or subscribe, be sure to do that so that you don't miss a thing. And finally, thank you so much for listening. I love doing this show for you. Be sure to join me next week for more insights, real conversations, lessons from successful women business owners. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next week right here on the Her Business podcast. Bye for now.